Hey, what's going on? What in the world is in my spirit today? Honestly, it's the same thing that has kind of been in my spirit for a couple weeks now, but I didn't really get the chance to go into great detail. I just feel like there's a big misunderstanding about the different ways that people misinterpret their energy, and they believe that something is one thing or it's another thing, but it really is something totally different and unrelated to what they believe. I literally was just reading before I decided to before I had to come and pick up my car. I was just reading about, don't give me the lion, I don't remember his name, John Gray. I'm terrible with remembering stuff like that. But it's not somebody that I follow normally. It just was an article that I saw on my timeline that somebody else shared, and I briefly looked over the article before I had to go and pick up my car. And basically I remember debating the topic when he was caught in some kind of sex scandal and his wife forgave him, and then they were doing services together, talking about it and stuff like that. I recall feeling from that situation that it's not the right way to handle it to chastise him for his sin, but not ask the question why. I think I saw a mosquito, and if I did, I'm not going to be able to concentrate. I'm allergic to mosquitoes, so I do not like getting bit by mosquitoes. Oh my gosh. I think it went out the window. I hope it went out the window. Yeah, chastising him for his sin without asking why he did it or what the why is not going to solve the problem. So I was not surprised to read that he has now been caught in another sex scandal. I wasn't surprised in the least bit, because the energy that I felt from the post that I originally saw with the wife was that he was basically taking all of the blame, and she sounded and seemed rightfully, I'm not saying she was wrong for feeling this way, but when you forgive someone, you have to really forgive them. You can't just say it because it sounds good. You have to really dig deep into your heart. And if you have a heart that is blocking the forgiveness because you don't want to forgive that person, then it's pointless. It's not going to matter one way or another. Forgiveness is for the person. It is not for the other individual. And I think that a lot of people really lose their way when it comes to having to forgive others, because they don't realize that forgiveness is not for the other person. We're expected to forgive by any means. We're expected to forgive the other person, but one thing we never do is forgive ourselves, number one. And number two, we don't ever do it for ourselves. We do it for them. And then we don't even turn around and forgive ourselves for what we did. So that's why forgiveness doesn't really happen for a lot of people. And it's just words. It's not really the action and the energy of forgiving someone. So I think it really is important to understand that there's some situations where there's some underlying energy that's not being acknowledged somewhere along the lines. I'm trying to think of how to say it without sounding away. But long story short, there is definitely, I'm feeling a lot of empath narcissist relationships and, you know, things of that nature. I'm feeling a lot of that happening right now, and it's where you have two complete opposites of the spectrum as far as energy, personality, temperament. You just have two different types of hearts, completely. Two different types of people that are the polar opposites of one another. And it becomes a situation where one is always going, ooh, he's still in here. One is always going to feel depleted by the other one, unless it's a reciprocal information. That mosquito is still in here. I'm gonna crash up this whole car over one mosquito because I really just don't like them. And it's making me itch too. I know it's a subconscious thing. It's not really, I'm not really itchy. I just feel itchy because I keep seeing that mosquito. But I'm gonna be very upset if I do get bit. Very upset. Okay, so I think everybody by now is pretty much familiar with what a narcissist is. The country is basically being controlled by the biggest narcissist I've ever seen in my life. But I'm pretty sure that everybody at one point or another has come across somebody who is a narcissist. And there's a difference between being a narcissist and having narcissistic behaviors. There's a very, 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 very big difference between the two. Most people have narcissistic behaviors. On average, I believe to an extent, every person has encountered someone who has been narcissistic towards them. And in turn, they have picked up the behaviors, and it just has become a way of communication. It's become a way of life. And it really shouldn't be, because it's not healthy. It's not a healthy way to deal with people. And it creates mental confusion. It creates uncertainty. It creates all kinds of issues in, you know, your dealings with people. If you're under so much manipulation that you're not able to see things clearly, then, you know, obviously there's a problem. And I was reading something today that was kind of talking about the ways that we empaths kind of absorb the energy that they're around. And it's by nature, it's a natural thing that happens because we're empaths. That's what we do. We just absorb energy from other people. When you surround yourself with a certain type of energy, you're going to start to absorb it, and you're going to start to use it. I don't think it's a mosquito. I just think it's one of those little flying bugs, but it's still annoying nonetheless. By nature, that's what an empath does. An empath absorbs, you know, energy from other people. And that's part of our superpower, is that we're able to identify people's emotions, and we're able to empathize with people's situations, with their circumstances. And it could be to our detriment, because if we take it to a toxic level, if we're not confident enough in ourselves, and if we're not, and most empaths they start off having low confidence. That's how they're able to be manipulated so easily is that they don't really have a high self-image of themselves. So they allow people to tell them what is. They allow people to tell them who is, who they are. And they basically allow other people to make them into the acceptable version that that person needs, the narcissist needs. They will turn that person into exactly what they need, who they need, because that's what a narcissist does. They take and take and take and take and take and take and take some more. And it's just a really selfish energy. So with that, I'm starting to really understand that. I mean, I don't want to say I'm starting to understand, because I kind of always felt this way. Not all selfish energy is a bad thing, but I think that some people, they really don't understand or see themselves as being selfish sometimes, because they know who they are and they know the person that they are internally. But it's very hard for them to understand that if you're so depleted of your own energy, if you're constantly being drained and you're constantly giving to other people, you're going to turn into, your energy is going to turn selfish at some point or another, because you have to, it's like being on E. You're going to snatch whatever you can get from whomever will give it to you. And it's something that you don't even really see happening, because you're under this manipulation that makes it very difficult for you to see things the way that it really is. And it's a web. It's a web. And a lot of people I know, and this is including myself, I've certainly been in this position before, more than once, and with a narcissist or 2 or 3 or 20. And so I think that people just don't really understand the importance of knowing who you are giving your energy to, understanding who you're giving your energy to, and just being vigilant with your energy. I mean, it really is that simple. Like, it's not fun, for sure. It's not fun, because everywhere you turn, there's someone who is trying to somehow manipulate your mind into doing whatever it is that they want you to do. And speaking of manipulation, one of the biggest ways to just beg to be manipulated is to keep watching the news. And I keep telling people to stop watching the news and stop paying attention to everything that's going on in the world, because a lot of it is distraction. And it's intended to distract you from what is really happening. And I don't want to start and sound like a conspiracy theory person at all, because I run away from them, because, well, I don't want to say I run away, because some of them I actually do believe. I definitely believe that this coronavirus was invited into this country. And I believe that the actions that was taken towards the pandemic team, I don't think that was accidental. Somebody like him does not make that mistake for no reason. I'm just saying. So with that being said, it's very hard to know who to trust. And it could even put you in a place of not wanting to deal with or trust anyone, because it's hard. It's hard to know who really has your best interest. It's hard to know who to trust. And I think 100% that is the reason why, as a society, we are mentally ill. And I know that a lot of people do not like to hear that. It's not exactly a nice thing to say about someone, is that they're mentally ill, but as a country, we definitely are. We are over depressed. We are over anxiety Did I say that right? We have a lot of anxiety. We have a lot of depression. You know what I'm trying to say. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. But yes, there's a lot of people who are suffering from mental illness, and most of it is self-imposed. And it's because we're living in a society that tells us to be a certain way, and that way is not natural to humanity. It's just not, it's not something that feels natural. And for example, black men being killed by the police, and then our country telling us that justice was served, or no one being brought to justice, and no one saying anything. It's just supposed to be okay somehow. That will make you crazy. Something like that, if it continues to happen, which it has happened for pretty much as long as I can remember. Racism has been around for who even knows how long. It's something that not all of us deal with, because not all of us are the same, obviously. But for you to turn around and keep telling the ones that are affected by it that it's not happening is gaslighting. And it's mental manipulation, and that's why people are mentally ill, and that's why people are depressed, and that's why people hold on so tightly to things that are of this world, because of fear. They're not holding on to their spirituality. They're not trying to develop a relationship with God, which is what is absolutely needed. And I believe that 2020 was designed to break down all of those barriers and those coping mechanisms that we have used to try to get us through and get us by. We don't have any of that anymore because of the state of the world right now. Because of COVID, everything is closed. All of the churches and all of the doctor's offices and this and that. People are really looking their lives dead in the eye, and they have to really come to terms with what they're seeing, which was being distracted for so long. So 2020 is bringing a lot of things to light that I think people just really don't want to see, but don't have a choice to see. And I saw a meme, I'm going to put it in. And this is a topic that I believe people are absolutely not ready to have the discussion about. And it brings it back to John Gray, I think his name is. Brings it right back to him. Just because you say this is what it is and you're honest about it, that's not enough to fix the problem. If he is that unhappy with his wife, then maybe there's a reason. Maybe the way that they were, maybe that isn't the person that God needs him to be with. Maybe God needs him to be single so that he can get himself together and he can find out what the basis is of this, sexual addiction that he has, if it's even an addiction. It may not even be an addiction. It's only called an addiction because it's not with his wife. If he was single and he was doing the things that he was doing, would it really be an addiction? No, probably not. Most people wouldn't view it that way. Everybody has their opinions based on the lenses that they are wearing through their experience and what they have been through. And, listening to other people's opinion about your life is going to keep you stuck in a mental prison. It's going to keep you stuck because the only person who really knows the truth is you. And if you're not able to express yourself and express your truth, you're living somebody else's life. And that's just really what it boils down to. And anybody who's living a false life or living somebody else's life is going to act out at one point or another. And for men, sometimes that's just what it looks like. It looks like them, you know, trying to find pleasure in whatever they can find pleasure in. You know what I mean? And it just makes a whole lot of sense. It really, really does. It makes tons and tons of sense. But the way the world, the way that we see it, just doesn't want to highlight the fact that maybe this just wasn't a match that was supposed to be. We rather hold on to the legal side of it. They signed, not signed documents, but they took vows. Maybe they did sign documents, who knows? But they took vows, and that is basically it. Those vows, that's all that matters. No, people's feelings matter. People's emotions matter. People's happiness matters. This world, if you keep on living it according to what everybody else tells you, you're never going to be happy. And I learned that firsthand. The moment I chose myself and decided to go in a direction that, you know, I was being led by God, I believe, that is when I started to actually find happiness and enjoying my life and living my own life, learning me, unlearning all the things that I was taught, all the ways that I was taught to see myself. I had to unlearn all of that, and I had to basically make a decision to stop walking around with a blindfold over my eyes. I had to open my eyes and see things for what they were. And it wasn't a pretty picture that I saw, but healing isn't easy. So it's just something that people go through and have to go through. So it's just one of them things. But I hope this message resonated for someone. I hope everyone is doing well. And I'll see you in the next video.